Alright, good morning, y'all. Good afternoon to some of y'all, and good day or even good evening, depending on where you're at. But real quick, I know what you're thinking when you see this. I just want to make it perfectly clear right now. This is definitely not a Broncos talk video. The subject matter is, however, Broncos related, yet we're actually going to be doing something a little different, as you'll see in the title. But either way, I just wanted to talk about this because this was brought up. I do also need to point out the fact that it has since been debunked. But as you can tell, Courtland Sutton has been linked to trade rumors to the Pittsburgh Steelers, even more so now recently after the departure of Russell Wilson and ultimately him signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers himself. So, why is this important? Well, I think it was pretty obvious and made very publicly known that, two were pretty close, probably even almost best friends, certainly one another's best friend on the team at the very least. It had to have been pretty rough when, just the moment that the news broke that Sean Payton was going to be benching Russell Wilson. More so specifically for the fact that really it just wasn't, it didn't get off to a very promising start to begin with, let's be honest, the moment that Sean Payton had taken over. I mean, all the things, like you can go back to that press conference or that interaction with the press or whatever it was when it was announced that he was hired, or somewhere along that time. It might have been a bit after, but they caught up with him somewhere along the way. I want to say at one of the facilities, and they talked about a lot of things, brought up the fact that, this man had his own office and all sorts, and he was quickly adamant about eradicating all that and all the things that really just made for so many of the problems within the Broncos locker room, and was very quick to turn that around. But in that same vein, that turnaround didn't quite lead to a whole lot of great things for the Broncos. But all the same, it all worked out how I think a lot of people had expected. It all came to an end. He was benched by, I believe it was week 17. And the rest is history. But, I only bring that up because for that being the case, as interesting as that would be, and as promising as it would be for Broncos fans and possibly even Steelers fans, there are a couple of reasons why this won't be happening, at least not anytime right away. One, I mean, there's just a matter of certain somebody here that they also did bring along into Pittsburgh because, I just have to bring this up. This is very, very important, but, this guy right here, I mean, yeah, him, guy that used to be a quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Really and truly, if we're being honest, a lot of people are going to probably be expecting him to end up taking the job at some point this upcoming season. I don't know how likely that is, however, but what I can say about this is you're basically investing in that trade for really just a situation that probably isn't going to last the whole way through. So, it's going to end up being fruitless in the long run, most likely. Even if Russ does survive the season as the starter, I don't think he'll survive next season as a starter. I just can't see that being the case, but who knows? Maybe Pittsburgh is where he needed to be, Tomlin's system is a lot better for a quarterback like him, and really, for all that's worth, maybe they were the ones that should have been trading with Seattle to get him in the first place. I don't know. That's just me. I'm not going to harp on that too much. But the other reason I do want to bring up in this is very much Broncos talk. And you see, say what you will, because there was a lot made out about the fact that Courtland Sutton wasn't quite as welcoming, especially on social media, to Bo Nix as a lot of people would have liked for him to be. Now, I'm not going to be so critical on something like that. I really don't find that to mean a whole lot. But at the end of the day, as much as I kind of have to try not to puke in my mouth when I say this, appearances are everything, and it just means a lot, to say the very least. But the reality is, unless we can get some sort of ironclad guarantee that one Tim Patrick is going to be fully healthy throughout the season, I don't know that that's necessarily something the Broncos are going to want to be traveling, at least not before, or at least visiting, at least not before the trade deadline. So let's see how a lot of the season plays out before we get to that. Now, on other things that I'd like to get to here, it's just really interesting because, I say a lot of times, a lot of the inspiration for my channel, or at least what I wanted my content to be at one point, was ESPN's First Take. And we're actually going into a couple of subjects now that were brought up on said show that I really feel like I haven't talked enough about. Certainly the latter for a variety of reasons, but in this particular case right here, one subject that was brought up is who's more likely to wind up winning a championship next. Or I might be mixing that up, but it was something along those lines that was brought up. Maybe that's something I'm making up for myself. Either way, the point that I'm wanting to get to here is that, as if you were to ask me who I think is more likely to win a championship out of these three right now, I'm going to go with Steph. Just because, for one thing, all he has to do is stay where he's at. They can very easily have the pieces around him play, and maybe even Draymond for that matter, depends on how they feel about things now, or whether they still want to visit moving on from him, or whatever the case may be. But even despite all of that, I would say Steph is the likely of the three just because of his overall situation. And again, he can literally stay put if he wants to, and it's pretty much made, from there. Now, as far as Durant and LeBron, on the other hand, there's not so much I can say in favor of them, because we definitely don't know if Durant's going to be staying in Phoenix for much longer. And now there's talk of LeBron possibly retiring, which is really interesting. I can't imagine he's ready to do that now, but I do think that we're getting a lot closer to that than we are seeing him playing on the same team as his son. I think it's probably a lot more likely he plays against Bronny at some point in the future, but it's definitely in the question as to whether or not they'll play together. I think that's very much the case. Now, how soon that happens is very much up in the air. Remember, Bronny is still weighing his options. Is he going to still be in the draft? Does he actually stay with the transfer portal plan and get somewhere that may fit better for him? Who knows? There's been a lot about Ohio State, and I think it's been brought up before, and I want to say LeBron said it himself. It's always possible he could go back to Cleveland again. Who knows? But either way, we're going to go ahead and get to finishing off, because this one's a little bit more difficult for me. I've said before in the past that I've been a fan of combat sports, more specifically MMA. Definitely enjoy boxing, certainly as much. However, yeah. God, this felt a lot easier than what it has turned out to be right now, and oh my God. Let me just preface what I'm going to say by acknowledging a couple of things. One, I absolutely have the utmost respect for both Logan and Jake Paul for doing what they've been doing, you know, putting themselves out there, especially Jake as far as the boxing thing. Now, between him and his brother, I actually am going to go out there, and I'm sorry, and if this somehow reaches both Logan and Jake, I really don't care. At least up until this point, and even with this, you know, I'm not sure where I'm at with them as far as, like, being boxers is concerned. And that's the thing, that's the common criticism that they've gotten across the board. I mean, they've been going against people that are either has-beens or just haven't really even boxed before. If they've even boxed all that much at all, professionally or even competitively. Or even under organized formats, I'll say. But I'll just admit this. Having watched Logan in WWE, I've been nothing but impressed with everything that he does. Not even just the fact that, given what he's been known for, and I'm not going to go into those things. I think we all know about that controversial shit that is tied in with Logan Paul, and we're really at a point now where we should be well past that. I'm thinking that's been at least 6-7 years now, probably more than that. So who gives a fuck about that, number one. But number two, and more importantly, again, this is where I gotta show respect to both of them, because these are things that they're doing that have to be considered as positives, you know, because they're doing something incredible with their lives. I'll even go as far as saying, if I sound jealous because I'm not on that level with that, go ahead and call it that. I'm not going to admit to that specifically, but I'm just speaking it the way that I know how to, and that's truthfully. I'm not going to watch this fight, first and foremost. Let me just get that out there, number one. I will have absolutely nothing to do with this, one way or another, regardless of who wins. I'll see and hear plenty about it on social media afterwards, probably even SportsCenter for that matter. But beyond that, it just means nothing to me. And what's troubling is that just a specific individual that I have a really, really complex personal relationship with, we'll just say. This is someone who, I've said before, I defer specifically to him as far as boxing is concerned, because he's just watched and seen way too much to where I'll ever be able to even know how to compare. I mean, it isn't even close. But what I will say is that just knowing all that, knowing everything historically speaking, that ties into the sport of boxing, and everything that you know, the sport has been through, you know, the things to where a lot of folks have been drug under the mud, whether for whatever the reason, and I'm not going to go into any of that either. But I think what I'm trying to say here is, at least at this point, and I'm sorry if this reaches either of the Paul brothers or both, I'm sorry, I don't care. This is just what it is. But I'm calling it is what it is right now, and I've even said this before. If Jake Paul wins this fight, which a lot of people expect him to do, I question very seriously how much I will take boxing seriously ever again after that. And just for a lot of the obvious face reasons of that. But I'd like to think something will happen to where maybe one of you or somebody convinces me, you know, otherwise, to change my mind about it and try to look at this a little bit differently, especially now that it's being sanctioned as a pro fight. But really and truly, if I'm just being perfectly honest about all this, I don't know that I can feel any other way, because I just don't know that I can. I really don't. That being said, of course, this video went a little bit longer, and normally I try to make room for two of them, but unfortunately I'm not going to have time for that. But something else I will be looking to do is getting more videos out after I get home from work, as long as it's at a reasonable point. But yeah, look forward to the daily uploads like usual. Thanks for being here. Thank you to all y'all that's been coming through to check me out and everything. I appreciate the support. Apologize for going long on this one. But yeah, I'll see y'all around.